is that very first love that should set the tone for how a woman should have a relationship with men.
That's right.
So I learned early on, I was probably about 7 years old. My stepdad, who I thought was my biological father, used to treat me differently. I never understood why. He was mean at me for no reason at all. And then all of a sudden, my biological father surfaced up. And I remember my auntie introducing me to my biological father. Of course, I was scared because I've always believed that my stepdad was my biological father. But then now it makes sense as to why he was treating me different. Now, see, he had an affair on my mom. My mom had an affair on him, and as a result of it, I was created, and my stepdad had a son outside of their marriage. So, the first man in my life that was supposed to show me what true love is outside of God, now I'm gonna get there. He resented me, and I could never understand why. So going on down the line, at 5 years old, I was supposed to be outside playing with Barbie dolls and coloring books and enjoying life. No, I was having my innocence robbed from me. I had a grown man sexually assault me. And this happened all the way to age 11. And I remember my mom, at that time, they was partying and drinking and, into the drugs. They were getting ready to go out one night. I was about 7 years old. This is when I was at that fed up point of what was happening to me. And I remember wrapping my arms around her legs and I was crying to her. And my stepdad, again, who resented me, thought I was just being a spoiled brat. But it was my desperate cry for help. So when nothing was done about that, and it was swept up under the rug, it began a spiral of rebelliousness with me. Because now I had this hate inside me. Now mind you, because they were doing what they were doing, she always made sure we went to church. Even if she put us on the church bus to go or had relatives pick us up. So I thank God for that. Because the scripture says, train them up in a way that if they depart from it, they'll know how to come back to it.
Amen.
So by age 13, I actually was raped. I was raped. The rebellion got even worse. Because now, everything about my life became my normalcy. I ended up even dropping out of school by my freshman year. Now, mind you, I was getting bullied at school because we never had any clothes. Parents being on drugs, they utilized their funds on taking care of their habit and not really taking care of us the way we needed to be taken care of. So I would always sit at the front of the school bus so I could get a jump ahead to run home when I got off. And it was always boys bullying me. It wasn't girls. It was always boys. See, my life and the relationships I had with men became turmoil. Again, I didn't know how to go to God. Because I felt like if there was such a God, why was I experiencing all these traumatic situations? So I went out at an early age looking for love. I wasn't getting it at home. So if a man told me I looked good, that's what it was. But for some reason, I've always had that desire to want to be married. When I got in my relationships with these men, it was 5 men that I had solid relationships with. I was looking for marriage. I was looking for love. They wasn't looking for that. So I kind of forced myself into the situation. I stayed in the relationship. Even when I knew it was unhealthy, I knew it was bad. They would go out and do things, and it's all right, babe. Just come on, I forgive you. Because I didn't get that from my dad, who should have gave me that. I was never taught that. So as time would progress, I ended up getting into some trouble. By the time I was 19 years old, I was facing 60 years. I was spiraling out of control. I was suicidal. I didn't care. I felt like maybe if I'm dead and gone, maybe they would love me. Maybe they'd think about me. But I remember laying up in that jail cell, and I had 3 kids at the time. I remember laying up in that jail cell, just crying. All that thug stuff went out the window. I started crying, I started crying, I started crying, I started crying. I was on the no bond. And all I kept saying is, Father, Lord, I'm crying out to the Lord now. I need you. I promise, Lord, if I can get through this situation right here, I won't do nothing else. I'm going to turn my life around, Father. I promise if you can just get me out of this. Meanwhile, my cellmate was getting fed up with me crying. She was getting fed up with me. I didn't care. I was crying. I wanted to get out. And I remember going to my bond hearing. They set my bond at $2,000. $2,000 was a lot of money back then, you know, going back 25, 30 years ago. So I went to court, I came back, and I'm crying some more. At the bond hearing, my stepdad did show up. And I remember just looking at him like, Lord, just go and take me on back there. He ain't got no way to give me a box jail. I went back to my cell. I'm crying more. I'm crying more. But I kept praying. For some reason, I don't know if God forced me in that situation. We one-on-one with him. But I got to praying and I'm crying. And my cellmate said, you know what? You doing all that crying. At least you got a bond. I said, and she smirked. I said, I ought to smack that smirk off your face. I want to get up out of here. I got my 3 kids and you talking about me crying. I said, what you in here for? She said, I don't even want to talk about it. Later on that night when we went on lockdown, we laying up in our cells. I'm crying more, praying. And she finally said, you know what? You ought to be grateful. You ought to be grateful because I'm never going home. I said, well, what are you locked up for? She said, murder. And we shared our stories on why we both were in there. And the crazy part about it is, our situations was the same. I gotta admit, you know, there was an older guy that was very in love with me. I wasn't in love with him because I was looking at the age difference. I was about 19, 58 years old. I looked at it as he was taking care of me, but he looked at it as he really genuinely loved me. And he was showing me some things. But because my mind wasn't ready for that, or the environment I grew up in, I couldn't handle it. That was too much for me. But I made a bad decision. I told some guys, you know, don't hurt him. You know, just shake him up, rough him up a little bit, scare him a little bit. He'll give you the money. And thank God, you know, God interceded by sending the police. We got caught, but she did the same thing. The man died. So as I was laying in that cell, I got to reflecting and got to thinking, my God, at least I can have the opportunity to go home and get things right. She don't have that opportunity. I mean, she can later on down the line. It's going to be a long time if that's to be the case. So, but then that incident, that was when I started to really think about my life and the direction that I was going in. I finally met my husband, met a man in love with him, 10 years older than I was. At the time I was 21, he was 31 years old. This is just, you know, this is great. This is all I want. This is what I've been wanting. I've been wanting a husband. I want somebody to love me. I want somebody to understand me. But again, my problem was living in the flesh. So I wasn't waiting on God. I wanted what I wanted. And in the midst of being in this relationship with this man, I ended up contracting HIV. And I was 7 months pregnant with our twin sons when this happened. When I went to the doctor and got this diagnosis. I was in disbelief because I'm like, this can't be so. Because I've been getting tested all up to this point, and I know this happened. This had to come from you. But the thing about it is, I'm going to take you back 2 years. My sister was diagnosed with HIV in 97. Nobody in the family wanted to have anything to do with her. They didn't want to eat behind her. They didn't want her house. They didn't want to stand all night. They didn't want to be bothered with her. But I embraced her. I let her stay with me. I let her eat. I fed her. I clothed her. I provided for her. And I understood her struggle. You know, she was on drugs real bad. But I opened my doors up to her. But then there was rumors that her and my husband was having an affair. And when I went to them about it, they both said no. I was being naive and trusting in what they said. They said it wouldn't have no relations. But then, speed up, when I found out about my diagnosis, I started to sit there and think. Is what I was feeling all along, the discernment God gave me back then was true? And even still, they didn't own it. But I tell you what, I got out of that relationship. I got out of it. And there was times that I was feeling so depressed, so dark, trying to understand why God was allowing me to go through all these things. I decided to go to a support group because I needed help. I needed therapy. I was just going through too much in my life. And I remember going to the support group, and every time I went, they talking about Barb that wouldn't see her maker. I said, okay. Went the next time. Well, you know, John that wouldn't see his maker, and this is a support group with dealing with people with HIV. I said, you know what, the next time I come back here, and they tell me somebody went to go see their maker, I ain't coming back. Because the devil is a lie. And I came back again, and lo and behold, they just said somebody went to see their maker. I packed my bags up and I walked out that door. Because the devil is a lie. But then 5 years later, these people got a hold of me they were discussing HIV because they was trying to learn more about it. And they wanted it to come from people that have those live experiences. And they asked me, would I come in and share my story? I said, absolutely, because that's one thing about it. I wasn't ever ashamed of it. I didn't do this to me. This happened, so I got to figure a way to deal with this the best way that I know how. So I went, and I asked them, I said, is it all right if my sister comes? You know, because she's dealing with HIV too. This could be something great for the both of us, you know, give us a bonding experience. We went, it was about 15 of us there, somewhere there, 12, 15 people. They gave us a full makeover. They provided us with some vouchers. They gave us some meals. They went all the way out. Everybody went and shared their stories and got down to me and my sister. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, you want to go or you want me to go? She said, I'll go first. I said, okay. She got up there. Because I was always curious about how she contracted it anyway. I never asked her that question. I'd be respectful of what she was going through before I got my diagnosis, and I was trying to be there for the best way I know how. So I didn't even ever ask her. So when she got to saying her name, now mind you, she lost all rights to her 6 kids. You know, she's on drugs and bad. She lost all rights to her kids. So she got up there, she got to tell her story. She said her name, and then she said, you know, I got my diagnosis in 97, and then she paused. And then she said, you know, my sister, I love her. You know, I watch how she prays with her kids. I see how she eats with her kids. And nobody would let me in. She let me stay with her. And I'm sitting here thinking, why is she making this about me? This is your time to tell your story. You know, when my time comes, I'll be telling mom when she got me crying. I went over there to comfort her, and she pushed me away. I said, sis, it's going to be all right. You know, God got us. And she paused for a minute, and she said, I am the reason why my sister got it. So all those years had elapsed, and that's the first time she revealed that to me. That, you know, I was going through so many layers of emotions. I felt betrayed, I was angry, I was mad, I was hurt, I was sad, and that was the longest ride home because it was a 45-minute drive of silence. I didn't speak to my sister for about 8 months. I was mad because I've never understood. As much as I bent my back over for you, you would do me like this. And when I was asking you, why couldn't you just tell me then? But see, God was in the midst of that then. See, everything that goes on in our life is ordained to happen. Ain't no such thing as wrong place at the wrong time. God knows when you're coming in, He knows you're in between, and He knows when you're going out. See, life had purpose. But let me tell you, for 8 months I shut down. But I started going through my transition. I started getting my healing. I started getting more close to God. And I remember in 2009, they were giving me 5 days to live. I was 110 pounds. And my baby, at the time, she probably was about 7 years old. She was trying to force feed me, and I couldn't eat. They brought social workers in the whole 9 yards. And I remember my social worker saying, Monica, you need to go to the hospital. I said, I ain't going to no hospital. I gotta be here with my kids. You know, I cook and I provide for my kids. You know, anybody gonna love my kids like me? And she said, listen, if you don't go to the hospital, she said, you ain't gonna be here long enough to do anything else for your kids. And I remember packing my bags up, and I was walking out that door, and I looked back as if this would be the last time I see my babies. I got to the hospital, and I remember they admitted me in, and they were talking about my prognosis as if I was not laying there. But while they were talking about my prognosis, I was praying out to God in a way I had never prayed before. I prayed and I called out to Jesus. And I remember it was 3 things that I asked the Lord for specifically. I said, full restoration in my health. Because Lord, I'm going to do this ministry and stay in your path, and you be my guide. I got to be strong. Amen. People need to see your works through me. Amen. Second thing, I asked for my increasing my wealth. I said, Lord, I got to be financially stable if I'm going to go state to state and speak and give the word to show your works. Amen. He didn't give me the money, but he gave me the resources and the tools. Amen. Because I have an associate's, a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctorate. I've been having my own business for 16 years preparing income taxes. And I do a slew of things in the community, trying to educate people on how to have a more empowered and constructive life. See, we can't sit here and assume that adults don't take care of their kids. We can't sit here and assume that adults are allowing their kids to do what they do. No, that's not to be the case. Because if they were never taught or told, how can they give their kids what they ain't never had to give? So I thank God for that. I thank God in his entirety for that, for my transformation. Now mind you, I spent 21 years in a relationship with a man going back a year ago. It'll be a year, July 16th. I spent 21 years in a relationship with this man. How I got with this man is, I had told him in the beginning, you know, that I was HIV positive, and the fact that he came into my life and was okay with that was enough for me. Amen. But the thing that was wrong with that whole situation is he used it as a way to take advantage of me as a woman. See, he used it as a vulnerability. So he didn't want to do much. I mean, he worked. I'm going to give him that. I give him that. But as I was growing in Christ and as I was growing in life, he was not ready. And I asked him on several occasions, I said, look, what I'm doing for God, I have to be all the way whole. I can't be half. I can't sit out here and preach to young girls about being in unhealthy relationships and I'm in one. You know, we got to make some decisions. If you want to be married, we need to do this. You're going to spend 21 and a half years with me going through the worst. When I was at my worst, you was there. So I don't understand what is the hold up with this marriage. You know, we got to be right in God's eyes. But there was a decision had to be made. And he just wasn't ready. Good man, I'm not going to take anything away from him. But what God has for me is going to be for me. So I parted ways from him. I parted ways. I've been celibate ever since. I've been celibate a year and a half. And I've just been, just by God's grace, taking every day, one step at a time, just glorifying his name. I don't even operate in the flesh anymore. Meaning, back then when somebody used to come to me, he say, she say, girl, come on, we finna go find out what they say, because I know this lie, I wasn't a part of that. No, the woman I am today, you know what, we're gonna pray for her.
That's right. That's right.
We're gonna pray for him.
That's right.
Amen.
Because you know, when people are operating in different fleshes, with the flesh, they have a tendency of behaving likewise. So we, as Christians, we have to walk talk, and be about God's business.
Amen.
We can't sit here and be one way one moment and be another way another.
That's right.
So I knew, and I spent the last 11 months in pure isolation, nothing but fasting, praying, and meditating, crying mostly, because my sister passed away in April, and I was by her bedside when she took her last breath. And 2 days before she did, she was in a state where she couldn't verbally speak, but I can read her eyes. And she wanted to know that I forgive her. And I kissed her on her forehead, and I said, I forgave you a long time ago. But because my transition in life, you know, me being about God's business, I separated myself from them, and she felt like I was still angry and mad at her, and it wasn't even that. It's just God was doing some things for me that I had to separate myself from the whole situation and the way they were living. But I thank God for that moment, because she left out of here peacefully, knowing that, you know, my love for her did not change because of that incident. But I'm going to tell y'all this. God has restored me fully of HIV. I have watched, yes, undetected. I have watched many pass away. They gave up on the fight. But see, the greatest thing about God, and He's all knowing, He's all seeing, and He was with me every moment, every pivotal point in my life. 5 years old, 16 years old, 21 years old, 25 years old, such and such. I don't want to say my age. But He was always there. Now see, Satan got to get permission from God too. Just know this. Just know this. So every time Satan went to God and said, I want Monica, I want to test, the Lord said, you can test all you want, but you can't have her. You cannot have her. And I'm telling you, children, y'all may feel like y'all are forced to be in church. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Y'all may feel like y'all are forced to be in church, but let me tell you something. I thank God, even in my parents' addiction, they kept us in church. There's nothing like the love of God. There's no greater peace. You may not understand it right now, but one day you will. And I want you guys to always remember, no matter what it is you are going through in life, even if you feel by yourself, just say, God, I trust in you.
That's right.
Because that's what it's all about, faith. And I'm going to say this before I close out. Faith without works is dead. We were sitting here yesterday doing prayer, and a woman was talking about medicines. You know, she didn't like taking medicines because the way it was making her feel. I said, baby, that's the enemy tricking you. I said, because when I started off taking HIV meds, they had me on like 18 drugs. And in my mind, I didn't want to take these meds because it make me feel like this, make me feel like that, make my stomach hurt. And I kept saying, you know what, Lord, I trust in you, Father. I trust in Lord. I ain't taking this medicine because I trust in you, Lord. But let me tell you something. Faith without works is dead. See, God put me with the doctor I needed to be with. They can provide me with the medicines I need to get me healed. So, just because I'm having faith in God giving me restoration, I got to do the work. That means I got to take the medicines. And I told her that yesterday, when you get ready to take your medicine, you feeling like you're going to have lightheadedness and dizziness, just say, Lord, I put the blood of Jesus on this medicine, I can take it, because the enemy, he knows your future too. And if he can prevent you from taking that medicine to get you better because you glorify God, that's exactly what he would do. But I love you guys all, and I thank you so much for allowing me to come and bless this house tonight. Do anybody have any questions for me? Anybody any questions?
How long did it take you to finally get undetectable?
Wow, medicines. The medicines that we have today is so different from medicines we say 10, 15 years ago. It didn't take much to get me undetectable. It was just about taking medications, living and managing a healthy lifestyle. That's with any type of infectious disease. I don't care if it's cancer, I don't care if it's diabetes, I don't care what the situation is. But ultimately, me, it was God. God's unconditional love for me is what got me undetected. And me applying the works and having faith in it. So, yes, ma'am.
How is your relationship with your mom now? I mean,
Oh my God. So let me tell y'all this. I took my mom shopping. This is about 5 weeks ago. I took her shopping. Now, my mom have never learned how to read or write. She never learned how to read or write, but she's amazing because she used the tools that she had to function on a day-to-day basis.
amen.
And so I took my book to her. Of course, her boyfriend read it to her. And I remember picking her up, and I knew he read that book because her demeanor. Yeah. And we driving on the highway, and I just said, I know he read you the book. I said, I could tell, how you acted. She said, I'm hurt. She said, because I allowed my addiction to for y'all to have to go through pain because of my addiction. So then we got to talking, and she got to telling me about stuff she experienced in life. Being sexually assaulted when she was 11 years old by her uncle. And when she would tell, she got her tail whooped. So it was swept up under the rug. So guess what? She couldn't give me what she didn't have to give me. But we have an amazing relationship because I understand her and she understands me. And to be honest with you, I ain't ever been angry with her. I was sad when I was young because I didn't understand how could she allow things to happen to us. But as I got older and got to understanding and realizing, things from her standpoint, I could just about tell from how the family dynamics was. I could have been for her. It made me realize she loved me the best way that she could. And I love her for that. And we have an amazing relationship. And when I got my master's, amen. My mom came, honey, you know how you get them strolling down there, and they get to screaming for you when your loved one come around there. I came around that corner, I looked at my mama, she was shouting praise and crying all at the same time. That right there itself was one of the best feelings in the world. So I'm telling y'all now, if y'all having issues with y'all parents, always remember this. When your parents raise you, even if you feel like it's not the best, and you have children on your own, just remember that is your opportunity to do better for your own. And clear up those relationships. Clear up those relationships. Don't leave here with no hurt in your heart when it comes to your parent. But forgive. Trust me, I always tell myself they can only give you what they was given to give. So forgive and mend those relationships. It's so important, I'm telling you. Anybody? Yes. Huh?
She found you.
When that happened, well, when I went to him and I told him about the diagnosis and he wrapped his arm around me and he said, I'm sorry, I said, oh, it's time for me to go. Amen. I packed my bags up. Well, I stayed with him, I'll be honest, for about a month. And I packed my bags up and I left. But I needed the strength of God to get me through that. Because he was the kind of man, and at the time I had no education. I had dropped out of school the whole 9 yards. He was raised where the man worked and provided for the family. So I was dependent on that. And I became accustomed to it. But see, when that HIV situation came up, God was showing me all along, I'm your resource. Amen. Not him. Amen. And again, that husband of mine was not God's choice for me. Amen. That was my choice. So that's why I went wrong at. So now, right now, currently, I'm waiting on God to send me my husband. Amen. I ain't taking no more chances. Amen. Yeah? Any more questions? Yes.
You said you have 7 kids?
Yes.
Did any of those kids contract HIV?
Not at all. Let me tell you how good God is. Let me tell you how good God is. Now, I was pregnant with the twins, and I had a baby after that. Remember I told you the guy I spent 21 and a half years with? None of them contracted it. So I knew this is something God specifically, a task specifically God had for me.
Amen.
I knew by God's grace. No, they did not. Thank you, God, in the name of Jesus.
Praise the Lord.
Any
Praise
more
the Lord.
questions? Yes. Huh? How many kids I have? 7. They all grown, living well, living their lives. So I can travel down and minister and talk about how good God is. Yeah.
Where can we find your book?
You know what? I have some in the car that I do want to gift. I want to gift at least 10 books. I want to give 10 books. So, yes, I got one. And my book is actually, I have it on Kindle, on Amazon, and Kobo. But I would like people to get it from me directly because those places, they get a percentage of it. So if you get it directly from me, at least I have all my sales. This is my life work. And let me tell you something about my book. Let me tell y'all something. I want to share this real quick. There was this guy who was always trying to talk to me.
Holla, holla. He was trying to holler, y'all.
Yeah. But see, the greatest thing about God removing that man out of my life and me going through that 11 months of, of fasting, praying and healing and praying is that God opened my closed eyes to things I couldn't see before. See, men, no, not disrespecting any man in here. No disrespect, so please don't take it that way. Men have a tendency of only seeing you for your physicality. See, they missed all those other important things. Like how beautiful you are, how sweet you are, how intelligent you are, how you can be there for them in a way that you need to be there for them. Because they're so busy looking for you at the physicality part. But this man, he would always be getting in my inbox, and I would never be receptive. So one day, I said to him, give me your address, and I want to send you my book. And he gave me his address, and I sent him my book. When he got the book, because I'm going to tell you how good it is. You ain't got to wait till chapter 3 to get it. Start in the gate. It's that good, because you can't put it down. Literally, you cannot put this book down. He called me up after he read, no, let me take you back. He texted me first. He said, oh my God, Queen, I'm so sorry that I've ever disrespected you, or I apologize for disrespecting you. Had I known you had, I said, see, that's the thing. You can't judge a book by its cover.
That's right.
I said, what did you do? Find yourself in one of those men that was in that book? You know what I'm saying? And to make it so bad, this man was married. I said, you know what, that's the thing. You got a wife at home. Sit down and figure out what y'all can do to get y'all life right or separate. Give her the opportunity to be happy in life. Because I know if you're doing this with me, you're doing this with everybody. But what was so amazing to me is that he got the message. He got the message. Come on now. I am grateful to God. Yes. And I'm going to say these last 2 things before I close it, I promise. Last 2 things. Someone asked me if I could go back in time and change anything about my life, would I? I told them absolutely not, nothing. Because the woman I am now can appreciate the woman I was before. Because that woman I was before went through some storms. Trust me. God saw me through every step of the way. That's why I get up every day, non-stop, worshiping him. It ain't just about the things that he's doing great in my life. It's about all the things that he's been doing in my life, good or bad. Because I know for a fact, we have to stop looking at the problem and look for the outcome. What is this situation going to do in my life that's going to make it greater for me?
That's right.
Stop focusing on the problem and look at the outcome of it. And I don't want to just single out men, because men get hurt. Men go through things just like women do. We have to, as women, have to understand that they don't have all the answers. Even though they can put up this exterior, they hard and they got it all, they don't. On the inside, they are just like us. And then I did a commentary on my book, and this woman asked me, well, she was my cousin. She said, if you go back to time and see that 5-year-old girl today, what would you tell her? At first, when she asked me the question, I was just kind of all over the place, like I don't know how to answer. Well, I'll tell her, you're gonna get through this. She said, no, you would tell her you love her. I said, you're right. I would go back and tell her I love her, and I said, listen, we're going to be crossing some storms. And I don't want you to give up, and I want you to trust in God every step of the way, because the outcome is going to be well worth it.
Amen. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. Amen.